Good morning, Miss. So today I'm going to represent to you my speech regarding to what would I do if I ruled the world. So, if I ruled the world, it's actually quiet and interesting concept. What would I do if I ruled the world? When I first heard this prompt, I thought to myself, oh, I know what I do. It's obvious. But then I asked myself, what would I do? You can't just say, I'd start world peace and end poverty. Because what good will that do? How will change be brought that about? Nothing can simply come to an end. It must change gradually. And for it to happen, people must be willing and able to help in the change. Before I begin, I'd like to point out that this speech is intentionally idealistic. The reason for this is that in order to make a solution to this problem, we must first become aware of them. I would do a lot of great things if I ruled the world, even just for one day. The world would be a very different place. There would be no misery, all people would be treated fairly, and everyone would obey the golden rule. A freedom that only asks, what's in it for me? A freedom without commitments to others. A freedom without love or charity or duty or patriotism. Is unworthy of our founding ideals and those who have died in their defense. If I were to rule the world, everyone would have a home and feel safe living their own lives. No one would be forced to leave their own country in search of safety, losing all of life's pleasure such as freedom and family in search of survival. Others sleep deeply in their beds, knowing that nothing bad would happen to them because they were not involved in the problem. Those sleeping in their beds may not have been part of the initial problem, but they are a part of the resounding problem. Without taking action, they are ensuring that those affected are powerless, without a voice, and without the right of choice. And no one wants that to happen upon themselves. I will make the world a more equitable place to live by preventing uh, hate crimes through proper free education, providing rehabilitation for those who can't seem to get out of poverty, and retribution of the soul from those who have access to education, and equal opportunity to those who aren't as fortunate. If I were to rule the world, I would give all of my support and help to every poor people, and I would provide them with all they need. I will not let them go unemployed. Instead, I will find them work and help them start a small business. If I ruled the world, I would make sure that everyone had enough money to sustain themselves and live without poverty. I would make sure that everyone has a place to live, running water and heat. No one would worry that they won't have anything to eat the next day. We should be able to live without fear of hunger or thirst. No one should have to live uh, in the streets with nothing but rags and scraps of foods. By giving people the necessities of life, we can avoid violence and starvation. If I were to rule the world, I would change the global environmental policy. I will outlaw the use of fossil fuels and mandate the use of renewable energy sources such as electricity, solar, wind, and water. I prior- a priority will be to clean up the sea, oceans, and rivers. I put money into emerging technology in order to find a greener alternatives to plastics. I will work to eradicate prejudice in all of its forms by starting with respect for ourselves and one another. In poor countries, I would also provide homeless people with housing, food, clean water, and free education. If I were to rule the world, bullying and discrimination would be a thing of the past. Discrimination should end, in my view, because we are all humans being who deserve to be treated fairly. Discrimination should not be practiced just because someone is of a different race, just because we are aware of each race's history, does not give us the right to discriminate against them. Because, let's face it, picking on others is a form of cowardice, and living your life in insecurities is not fair. If I were to rule the world, I would make drastic changes. Every single person will be treated fairly. No one would be treated differently because of their ethnicity, religion, or gender. Instead, everyone would look beyond each other's differences and embrace people for who they are, not who they claim to be. I'm going to change the law. I will make certain that no one on this earth will ever be discriminated again. I'll do so by changing or abolishing prejudice laws that have made countless people lives a living hell. I'll also make sure that constitutions are required to follow the international equality laws that obligate governments to treat people with unconditional respect. I will gather all world leaders to create legalized regulations and agreements for fight against corruption and ensures that the regulations are properly socialized and practiced. The rules include penalties for those who commit corruption offenses. If I were to rule the world, education would be a right, not an option. And children and adults all over the world would be trained to feel and become self-sufficient and strong-minded, regardless of who they are, where they live, or how much money their family has. All children have the right to attend school and learn. A safe, friendly environment, qualified and motivated teachers, and instructions in language which students can understand are all necessary for quality learning. It also necessitates the monitoring and feeding back of learning outcomes into guidance. Everyone will have access to education. Encourages a child to develop into a strong person. If I rule the world, I will prohibit all alcoholic drinks, tobacco products, and illegal drugs. These three substances should not be causing people to die. They should not be wasting their money and wasting their lives on this. They should stop doing this by now if they don't want to go bankrupt or die young. As the world's ruler, I would create human rights education in every school and every country. Of course, if I were to rule the world, everybody would attend school. I agree that even with these abilities, I won't be able to change the world with a wave of a magic wand. Change on this scale will take many generations. It's about more than memorizing the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in a classroom. It requires an environment that fosters respect among teachers and students and is free of all types of discriminations. Human rights entails knowing how others should be, but also how you could be in order to make the world a more equitable and secure environment. If I were to rule the world, I would put an end to wars. I'm not a huge fan of battles. People shouldn't fight in the first place. I detest the idea of wars because they involve fighting and people getting killed. Terrorism. It is the cause of many people's fear, and terrorism is the reason why our world is now being destroyed by hate, misunderstanding, and world peace. From an economic standpoint, it has an effect on the growth of countries because visitors will not go to countries where there is a high risk of terrorist attack. If I were to rule the world, I would create animal shelter all over the place and employ veterinarians to treat sick animals. Since I am an animal lover, it will naturally become a top priority for me. I will ensure that no animals go hungry and that they get plenty of love from animal lovers. Having one nation throughout would also unite the people currently living on planet Earth. There would be no such thing as a top nation or a most important country, and there would be no rivalry between nations, which has been a source of recent wars. Although only one nation in the world with no government seems impractical and uncivilized, the world will be governed by the citizens. There would be one world government with one governing judge, yours truly, and a jury of people, chosen by the people. And the people's voice would be heard. The public will be involved in the big decision that would need to be taken. Thus, the world is ruled by the people themselves. The most important thing I would do if I were to rule the world is to ensure that everyone follow the golden rule, which states, "Do unto others as I have done unto you." This law will ensure that everyone in the world is treated fairly and equally. So as you can see, you don't need the rule to change it. Instead, make minimal changes as I have. Every single one of us has the power to make minor improvements and that have a much greater effect on others than you could possibly imagine. In the end, remember that Live Your Life by Mahatma Gandhi's famous words. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Last, if I were to rule the world, I would not do so alone. Everyone is born with the same organs, senses, and emotions. It's just that some people are luckier than others when it comes to the lottery of life. If I were to rule the world, I would give everyone a voice because we are all equal and deserve the ability to make a difference. If I ruled the world would be an opportunity for everyone to make the best of. If I were to rule the world, you would rule the world too. And that's all. Thank you.